On the spot news media, we got the latest news. We don't care about the views, we just representing right. Put local news internationally every night. On the spot, wave that Jamaican flag from left to right. Let's get it right, y'all know the type. We ain't dealing with the hype. We make it take flight.
Yeah, man, my viewers and subscribers, what go on? A blessed and wonderful Thursday morning to each and every person out there tuning into On The Spot News Media. Now, my peeps, you don't know how we do it over on this side each and every morning. We have to give thanks and praise to the Most High Creator for the preservation of life, because life is indeed the greatest. So in the morning, my peeps, I have a few stories to share with you, the regular members of Chan Public and also members of the diaspora. So please like the video, share the video, watch the entire vlog so you can get a full understanding and a better appreciation of everything we are going in Jamaica. So watch this now, my peeps. We're going to kick it off in the morning here with some updates. Well, sometime this week, I think Monday evening, if memory serves me correct, I carried a vlog where I spoke about this thing here presently on your screen. But that thing here, you know, it come from that place here presently on your screen. So me know no get the full understanding exactly what me I talk about. Yeah, man. So that thing there, the sprat, the fish tail, the whale tail, whatever it is that you want to call him, that thing there, I recover in the hospital, and he has since been identified as Liana Jackson. But I don't know how a male come by the name of Liana, or probably him do a name change or something like that. But whatever the case may be, it is now stated that he's recovering in the hospital after that so-called robbery where him tell the police that took place along Robert Crescent in the Crossroads area sometime early Monday morning. But we all know what really go on with that incident there. Cabby, I go about in business in a little pro box, feel for some rankers and pull up on him regular spot along Robert Crescent in a crossroad for solicit some of the thing there from the females. But this time, him get a she-male instead of a female. So Cabby, when him dip for the rankers, she say boy a two marble size thing a roll up in him hand, and have a rock and pop off him chops and clap two can, same place in the grind area. Take away himself. Now it is said that police are look for the cabby. Whilst the police them can definitely look for the cabby, my question is, isn't that a criminal offense still on the books of Jamaica, where if a man a solicit them type of thing there in our streets from other males, it is still considered unlawful? So if a funky type of youth forget a charge too. Yeah, man, because not only he's to be charged for the funky type of behavior and soliciting round him back part, he should also be charged for impersonating a woman. Yeah, man. Saying the way. Make we continue. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about, you know, my peeps, and this is very serious. This criminal element here, presently on your screen identified as 42-year-old Omar Rhoden, but them call him Munga in our streets, come from in a Osborne store there, so, in a Clarendon. He was fatally taken out in a hail of bullets. Officer Yeman pick and team from CTAC put on that decent spot of work there. But we now got talk about the spot of work where the officers them put on this morning. because we spoke about that in recent vlogs. What we are going to talk about is that Omar Rhoden, aka Munga, him have the big A, the capital A, and we all supposed to know what that stands for. So we get to understand, say, he was also a serial hold on and take type of man, rapist. Go around and pick the little girl, pick them cherry without their consent. So to all of his female victims, and if there's any male victim, because none of them bad man, they are some round so type of man too. So for all of his victims, if you have not yet reported the incident, please do so with immediate effect and get yourself checked. And for all of the Krasmites them, we are bad man in show, she like that type of thing. Get for yourself checked too. Because we don't want this thing here to break out and get other people involved in our guan unjustly. Really sad. So again, the criminal element presently on your screen, it is alleged that he is infected with the big A. Boy, may I tell you, the thing rough. Now the next update is surrounding the 3 individuals accused of taking away this 13-year-old girl from her home in Clarendon. They have been remanded in custody until June 16th. They appeared in the Supreme Court on Wednesday for the first time since being charged. The accused are 60-year-old religious leader and welder Byron Hunter, the aunt, the key and main suspect of the taking away of the little 13-year-old, Dana Mae Taylor, and 38-year-old Roche Hunter. So Byron Hunter and Taylor face multiple charges including abduction of a pitney under 16 years old and also being a member of a criminal organization, failure to secure a child's education and failure to report a child in need of care and protection. Roche Hunter faces similar charges with an additional count of conspiracy for take with the people in Pitney. Boy, may I tell you, I hope them learn, after this experience. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, my peeps, in this morning's set of stories is that 31-year-old Dennis McKinley has been slapped with a whole heap of charges to including a loss of life for the taking the life of a man whose body was found in a barrel in Kingston last year. So Dennis McKinley, who is otherwise known in the criminal underworld as Denden, said to be a factory worker from Wellington Road in a Kingston 13. The deceased man has since been identified as 26-year-old Andrew Cunningham, but them call him Tallman in our streets. Tallman come from around a Ramsey Road in a Kingston 13. So the Denham Town Police reported that sometime between 2 and 8 p.m. on Sunday, March 17, 2024, Cunningham was at his home when he was fatally conned up by the criminal element Dennis McKinley. It is said that Dennis McKinley was not alone, but he was in the company of his cronies. The Denham Town Police stated that the Nakis and Clappis them later disposed the body of Andrew Cunningham, aka Tallman. Them take him body and stuff it in a one barrel and took it onto Reuben Avenue in Rosestown and leave it right there. So his body was, however, retrieved by the police the following day on Monday, March 18th. McKinley, the criminal element Dennis McKinley, aka Denden, was arrested during an intelligence-led operation on April 22 of this year. He has been charged with the fatality of Tallman, conspiracy to commit the fatality of Talman, possession of a prohibited weapon, unauthorized possession of ammunition, preventing the lawful burial of a corpse, and being a part of a criminal organization. So right there and then, my peeps, another decent spot of work again by the squaddy them. Yeah, man. Now over there in the troubled, war-torn, crime-riddled St. Andrews South Police Division, a firearm and ammunition was seized in the Unsby policing area, and 4 men presently in custody. Yeah, man. So watch this now. Presently on your screen is the firearm in question. So lawmen assigned to the Specialized Operations Branch seized this Intratech 9mm submachine gun with a magazine affixed containing 19 rounds of ammunition along Dilpath Crescent in Waterhouse, St. Andrew on Monday, April 28. Reports reaching on the Spot News Media is that sometime around 9:30 a.m., the lawmen acting on information intercepted a vehicle traveling along Dilpath Crescent. The vehicle was searched and the firearm and ammunition were found in a shopping bag in the vehicle. So the 4 boy them, were did in the vehicle, police them just bangle them and march them down to Unsby jail. And I right there, so them a go stay. And I hope that Your Honor no give them no bail. Make them go and stay in a jail and smile and yell. 15 years apiece. Yeah, man. Unless them decide to talk a really over and sink the real perpetrator. Yeah, man. So the next thing that we are going to talk about, my peeps. I spoke about it in yesterday evening's vlog. But in the morning, we are going to look upon another section of the law that was amended. We are going to look upon the children part of it. So the little boy them, the little 12, 13, 14, 15, we feel like say them can go out there, go knock it and clap it pan people. Take them 3 pints and just go to a reformatory school for a little bit and then come back a road and go and easy back and continue them slackness. We know in for a serious awakening because children convicted of a fatality right now on a face 15 years at minimum in prison. Yeah, man. So this is one of the amendments in the Child Care and Protection Amendment Bill passed in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. So we're going to hear from Justice Minister, that's Delroy Chuck, who piloted the bill in the House. So the Child Care and Protection Amendment Bill is one of the 3 major crime bills passed in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. And Minister Chuck is stating that too often more consideration is given to the child offenders and not the victims and their families. He says that this was a predominant argument of many of the groups who contributed to the bill at the committee stage. So we're going to make Minister Chuck give you the full rundown on what I going to start going right now in the courts. Now listen.
In respect of capital murders, where the offender clearly has shown not only malicious intent, but shown a wickedness that he should spend at least 15 years in custody. And so the sentence for capital murder should be life imprisonment, or if a determinate sentence is considered appropriate by the judge, 30 years. But in either cases, the offender must serve 15 years. This is reduced from 20 years that we had agreed at the Joint Select Committee, and I asked the Parliament to approve the reduction of minimum mandatory from 20 to 15 years. In the case of non-capital murder, it can either be life imprisonment, but we are saying because it's a young offender and the circumstances are so varied. Not the wicked, egregious, malicious behavior of the offender, but a young offender that the court for non-capital murder can impose a determinate sentence to be decided by the judge. And the judge at the same time can also say what period of time must be served before that offender can be released. In other words, we leave it to the court in the respect of young offenders 14 to 17. It wouldn't be correct, Madam Speaker, for this Parliament dealing with young offenders 14 to 17, that the victim's family who go to court or who hears of the sentence of the offender say, but wait, he just got a pat on his wrist. As far as we are concerned, Madam Speaker, this Parliament must reflect the intolerance, the repugnance, and the feeling that the victim and the families of the victim possess when they have lost a loved one. And that sentence must be reflected in the sentence that we guide the courts with when an offender has been found guilty of capital or non-capital murder.
Now, my peeps, JFJ also weighed in on this. So the human rights lobby group Jamaicans for Justice is insisting that the existing sentence and parole mechanism for minors found guilty of capital murder should be maintained. This is in response to what Justice Minister Delroy Chuck announcement stated. He stated that in the House of Representatives on Tuesday in relation to further amendments in the Child Care and Protection Act. The minister stated that the changes proposed to the child found guilty of capital knockings and clappings should be sentenced to life in prison or not less than 30 years and be eligible for parole after serving 15 years. The adjustment represents a 5-year reduction when compared to the initial proposal of 20 years before being eligible for parole. So assessing the changes whilst speaking on radio, Executive Director Michael Jackson described the proposed amendments as immoderate. Now we're going to hear from the JFJ Executive Director Michael Jackson as she weighs in on the new amendment to the Child Care and Protection Act. Now listen.
The first iteration of the bill had Section 78, subsection 3 of the Child Care and Protection Act being done away with, which was the section that dealt with judicial discretion in terms of how judges can vary away and impose just sentences for children who are facing the courts for murder. But we note that it's twofold, where in one instance, I believe it is capital murder, the judge must impose the mandatory minimum sentence. But in non-capital murder, the judge would have that discretion to vary and to impose a sentence that the court sees fit. We believe that generally when it comes to child justice matters, the full discretion should be within the remit of the courts. It will worsen the prison overcrowding challenges that we have, and it undermines the principle of rehabilitation and child justice. Now, while we welcome the reduction in some of the excessive mandatory minimums which were set for capital and non-capital murder, the challenge that JFJ is having, and we hope that the Senate will accept, is the inclusion of a safety valve, which is still maintaining some judicial discretion where the courts can look at matters on a case-by-case basis and note that while you may have a mandatory minimum set, if in a particular matter you believe that justice would be best served to divert from the mandatory minimum, the judge will have the discretion to do that.
So while we hear what you're saying, Miss JFJ, you ever stop to consider at least one at a time the victim and their families? You're always so concerned about the criminal elements' rights. You're calling it child care rights. That is a pitney criminal. Yeah, man, and nothing else but that. So we understand your mandate and we understand say you have to do your work and push where you are pushing. But stop and think for once about the victim and their family members, especially the family members sitting in that courthouse, and watch a judge give a little pat on the shoulder to somebody that took your family's life, especially in the case where the family member is innocent. Think about that. Yeah, man. Now, the last thing that we are going to talk about to my peeps, I made mention of it in yesterday evening's vlog. I want to know push this in our head, especially the old dirty corner boy them and the Krasmite girl them out there. And also to the mothers who support their sons, their children in their wrongdoings. It is no more 15 or 25 or even 35 to life. Now the government has instituted all of your life, 50 years behind bars if you commit what they call capital murder. Yeah, man. Now listen.
New penalties for murder were passed in the House of Representatives yesterday. And so what was passed, and you have to really pay attention to this, there were amendments made to the Offences Against the Person Act, the Criminal Justice Administration Act, and the Child Care and Protection Act. These amendments represent a vital and deliberate response to the levels of violent crime in our society, particularly those involving the most heinous offense, which is murder. In respect of the Offences Against the Person Amendment Bill, for non-capital murder, the mandatory minimum sentence for imprisonment is now 30 years. That's 30 years for non-capital murder under the Offences Against the Person Act. For capital murder, we have increased the mandatory minimum sentence to be served before being eligible for parole from 20 years to 50 years. That is us saying that we are really serious on crime. We are saying that the victims of murder and of crime matter, and that the penalties have to be very, very strong. We've also seen under that same act, the Offences Against the Person Act, we're increasing the mandatory minimum sentence to be served before being eligible for parole, where the sentence is imprisonment for life. We're moving that from 15 years to 40 years. And finally, where a term of years has been imposed, the period that must be served before becoming eligible for parole is 20 years. In terms of the Criminal Justice Administration Amendment Bill, there were some amendments that were recommended here that have been passed and were passed yesterday, and it increases the term of years to be deemed as life imprisonment from 30 years to 50 years where the offense committed is murder. The starting point for calculating the reduction in the sentence is usually life imprisonment, and the aim of this amendment is to maintain an incentive scheme for defendants to plead guilty, but ensuring that the reduced sentence is not inordinately low. And so we know that we will still give that credit if you do plead guilty, but this term that is still served needs to be sufficiently long to serve as a disincentive for doing this. So the Prime Minister said this was a priority, and it is a priority, and we have done what we said we were going to do. No one can think that I can commit murder and I can go and cool out for a bit in jail and then come back out after 15 years or so and commit another murder. We are saying that is no longer the case. And we're very serious about this. We're very serious about preserving life. We're very serious about the rights of the victims. And the victims are often voiceless in what happens. And so this is us saying to Jamaica, we hear the cries of all of the people who have been victims and their families have been victims to murder. And we are very much saying to Jamaica, we will not stand for it, and the penalties demonstrate that.
Now, this me a talk about government, mean, business. Yeah, man. And this is not me taking no political side, because I care zero about both of them. But we have to commend them when it is due and right now. We commend them for these amendments, because the victims and their families matters. Yeah, man. So anyway, my peeps, remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned to On The Spot News Media as I continue to bring you fresh news and updates in a subsequent newscast. On The Spot News Media. Yeah, man.